So, Inside Out 2, the penultimate film in our marathon of films we have to cover. When we heard the announcement of an Inside Out sequel, given the very last line of the first movie, needless to say that I had some pretty big shoes to fill, especially considering that I had quite a bit of a nostalgia connection to the original movie. This was a movie I had been intending to watch for a while now, given that I had seen it advertised for quite a while now. I mean, new emotions? Riley being a teenager? What is happening? And now that I have finally gotten the chance to watch this movie in full on DVD, wow! Yet another movie that genuinely surprised me after this first time watch. Granted, not as much as Turning Red, but for second movie standards, especially coming right off the heels of a sequel that completely missed the mark, this was impressive. The story is very strong. It has been 2 years since the events of the first movie, and Riley is now preparing for high school. But since the emotions now work in tandem, there is now a basement below headquarters called the Sense of Self, which is where certain memories of Riley's are placed. I love this idea. It gives a great expansion to the mind world. All seems to be going well, but the emotions are then woken up by the puberty alarm, and upon arriving, new emotions spring in, including anxiety, envy, embarrassment, and ennui, which you don't know is the posh word for sarcasm, and even nostalgia, who pretty much remains downstairs. But anxiety starts to take too much control of Riley, which leads to the original 5 being bottled up. And it's up to Joy and the others to get back to headquarters. But all the while, anxiety gets a bit too big for her boots, which leads to a pretty big consequence during the climax of the film, and during Riley's big hockey match. And it turns out that nobody can determine who Riley is. After seeing a rather remorseful anxiety, Joy ends up removing the sense of self, and it creates a new complicated sense, and everything goes back to the way it was, with Riley in a new place. This is definitely one of the strongest stories I have ever seen to come out of a sequel, and that's saying something, because I adored Finding Dory's storyline, and Cars 3 blew it out of the water with its personal story. But this is definitely up there in terms of modern Pixar stories. Anxiety made for an interesting semi-antagonist. Honestly, it's a lot like what Gabby Gabby went through, where, after he goes too far for a vast majority of the film, he admits he went too far. It's nothing new, but I do think he's definitely cool. And it's kinda ironic that an antagonist of a film, kinda, is orange. Gee, it's kinda like another character who, while I like, is being a bit of a prissy at the moment. Well, at least she was. And not gonna lie, but I did kind of find Envy kind of annoying. Not Billy or Logging Loco's annoying, but kind of a bit too much. But maybe that's a good thing, as her jealousy plays a bit of a part when Riley meets some of the Red Hawks members. And while embarrassment doesn't do much, I do admittedly find the moments where he helps Sadness to be quite sweet. There are beats in the story that I really like. I love the beginning where it pretty much starts where the first movie left off, with Riley playing hockey like she did in the first movie, and that plays a big part in this movie this time, with Riley getting to be on a big time hockey arena, but at the cost of her, Grace, and Bree moving to a new school. The relationship in this movie is fun in the beginning, but you really feel a bit worried when she's starting to drift apart from them, all because of anxiety starting to take control of her. But when Riley accidentally injures Grace and is sidelined, that's when anxiety loses it, and starts to rapidly do everything to fix Riley. But it doesn't, and it only makes her worse. But when Joy steps in, Riley is now fine. and she admits to the two that she was upset over the three of them moving schools. This scene when they make up is so wholesome. Up there with that emotional moment when Riley comes home in the first movie after trying to leave San Francisco. In fact, I'd say even more so. It was so great to see the original 5 emotions again. All of them are handled great. But Joy has a great character arc. At the beginning, she's the exact same character we saw of her in the first movie, all replacing the memories in the basement I mentioned earlier. But only once anxiety comes into the picture, she tries to talk him out of controlling Riley too much, which does come back to bite him later in the climax, and proves her right. And she also has to realize that she can't determine who Riley is, which leads to that complicated mind. And you can really tell in certain parts that Joy is trying so hard to stop anxiety from taking too much control of Riley. And you really feel her emotions in certain parts, like in the scene where fear, disgust, and anger voice their frustration with their predicament, in which Joy snaps and admits that she doesn't know what to do, and feels hopeless and pushed to her limit over constantly being so upbeat all the time. And even during the climax where, after the pipes collapse because of anxiety, she feels defeated and doesn't know how to control Riley. Joy is definitely much more established than she was in the first movie, and that's coming from the same company who didn't really hit on Helen being the lead of Incredibles 2. Oh, and I gotta love the fact that the little sparks hit on Joy which signals her to come and fix Riley. This was so clever. Just wanted to bring that up before I forgot while typing the script. And the climax for this movie is one of the most intense climaxes I've seen in recent years. I just love at the start when Anger just pulls out random dynamite before Pouchy finishes talking, which comes in handy when the tidal wave of memories pours in, which is the source to joy, anger, disgust, and fear getting back to headquarters through the basement. And I was on the edge of my seat during the hockey sequence. Easily one of the best climaxes ever in Pixar's history. Easily boosts this movie up a notch. The animation for this movie is great, and it's a step up from the previous movie. I love the little sequence where, in the scene where the OG5 are still stuck in the jar in the vault, we see different styles of animation, like Floofy and Pouchy being 2D animated, which I definitely appreciate, although the two did give me Vietnam flashbacks to some of Nick Jr.'s shows. I like the art style of Lance Slashblade. It kind of put me in mind of the Last Wishes animation art style, a more storybook-like animation. But the animation in general for the rest of the film is one to none. I really love all the scenes in the basement. Really makes it so whimsical. And the music for this film is just as whimsical and great as it was in the first movie. Surprisingly, Michael Giacchino doesn't come back for this movie. Instead, a new composer, Andrea Datzman, composes it instead. And she blows it out of the water. And even with a new composer, we still hear the iconic melody heard in the first movie. Given it was a different composer, it could have been completely omitted. But it absolutely wasn't. Good on Datzman for actually keeping that motif in within the score. So in conclusion, Inside Out 2 was a very good sequel. It is a definite step up from the original movie, with great expansions to the original 5, great music and animation, and interesting and complex new characters, and a great expansion to the world we came to know from the first movie. Considering that it nearly had been a decade since the first movie, it's kind of impressive that Pixar was able to pull it off. Then again, they achieved this better with Finding Dory, which, let alone, took way longer to come out after Finding Nemo. But even with that, I would definitely recommend giving this sequel an honest chance. It's a really, really good expansion to the mind. Definitely one of the better sequels to come out of modern Pixar. And with that, we are now down to one more movie. Tomorrow, we will see what Elio brings to the table. I'm kinda intrigued with what this movie will bring to the table. Why? Well, you'll see why for tomorrow's video.